The time has come to finally review my favorite movie of all time. Hey everyone, it's Movie Lover 120 here, and I'm here with a brand new movie review, and this movie review is going to be for what is easily considered to be my number one favorite movie of all time. I think that since we're nearing 300 subscribers, today is finally the day you can all, for those of you who know or do not know, get to finally know my number one favorite movie of all time, because no movie review channel is complete if you don't review your favorite movie of all time. So, today's movie review is going to be for what is easily my number one favorite movie of all time, and that would have to be 1972's The Godfather, directed by Francis Ford Coppola, and released in 1972. So, what's the plot of this movie? Well, The Godfather, Don Vito Corleone, is the head of the Corleone Mafia family in New York. He is at the event of his daughter's wedding. Michael, Vito's youngest son, and a decorated World War II Marine, is also present at the wedding. Michael seems to be uninterested in being a part of the family business. Vito is a powerful man and is kind to all those who give him respect, but is ruthless against those who do not. But when a powerful and treacherous rival wants to sell drugs and needs to Don's influence for the same time, Vito refuses to do it. What follows is a clash between Vito's fading old values and the new ways which may cause Michael to do the thing he was most reluctant in doing, in which a mob war against all the other mafia families which could lead to the Corleone family being torn apart. So basically, the film was based on Mario Puzo's The Godfather novel, which remained on the New York Times bestseller for 67 weeks and sold over 9 million copies in 2 years. It was published in 1969, and it became the best-selling published work in history for several years. Paramount Pictures originally found out about Puzo's novel in 1967 when a literal scout for the company contracted the Paramount Vice President of Production, Peter Bart, about Puzo's unfinished 60-page manuscript. Bart believed the work was much beyond a mafia story and offered Puzo a $12,500 option for the work, with an option of $80,000 if the finished work were made into a film. Despite Puzo's agent telling him to turn down the offer, Puzo was desperate for money and accepted the deal. Paramount's Robert Evans relates that when they met early in 1968, he offered Puzo a $12,500 deal with the 60-page manuscript titled Mafia after the author confided him that he urgently needed $10,000 to pay off gambling debts. Around March 2, 1967, Paramount announced that they backed Puzo's upcoming work in hopes of making a film. In 1969, Paramount confirmed their intentions to make a film out of the novel, priced for $80,000, with aims to have the film released on Christmas Day in 1971. On March 23, 1970, Albert S. Rudy was officially announced as the film's producer, in part because studios executives were impressed with his interview and because he was known for bringing the films in under budget. The Godfather premiered at Lowe State Theater on March 14, 1972, and was widely released in the United States on March 24, 1972. It was the highest-grossing film in 1972, and was for a time the highest-grossing film ever made, earning between $250 and $291 million at the box office. The film received universal acclaim from critics and audiences, with praise for the performances, particularly those of Brando and Pacino, directing, screenplay, cinematography, editing, score, and portrayal of the Mafia. The Godfather acted as a catalyst for the successful careers of Coppola, Pacino, and other relative newcomers in the cast and crew. The film also revolutionized Brando's career, which had declined in the 1960s, and went on to star in films such as The Last Tango in Paris, Superman, and Apocalypse Now. At the 45th Academy Awards, the film won Best Picture, Best Actor for Marlon Brando, and Best Adapted Screenplay. In addition, the 7 other Oscar nominations, including Pacino, Cannes, and Duvall for Best Supporting Actor, and Coppola for Best Director. Godfather to this day is regarded as one of the greatest, most influential films ever made, as well as a landmark in the gangster genre. It was elected for preservation in 9 National Film Registry of the Library of Congress in 1990, being deemed culturally, historically, or significantly significant, and ranked the second greatest film in American cinema, behind Citizen Kane by the American Film Institute. Now, once again, like I said, for those who do or do not know, The Godfather is easily my #1 favorite movie of all time. I first saw this movie when I was recovering from wisdom teeth surgery, and I have been so invested in it ever since. The film works so well because it takes a place in an underworld which we are so embedded we do not even observe it. Coppola puts us straight to the smack dab center of what it is. Admittedly, a society made by criminals. This is for criminals. It is also the reason why it's so welcoming. We are surrounded by its inhabitants, cold-blooded murderers, men who see crime like a 9-to-5 job masquerading as honorable men. And I do mean men. From the outside, we would only witness the horrifying, disturbing manifestations of their well-thought-out actions. And rather than concentrating on everything that is great about The Godfather, a much easier way for me to judge its quality on what it is bad about it. Most every film has something that I don't like about it, but I can honestly say I wouldn't change anything about The Godfather. There's not really anything weak about it, and nothing that stands out as really bad, per se. The Godfather is just one of those few films in which I personally did not find any significant weakness, even after many viewings. From the direction, to the acting, to the storyline, to the score, The Godfather has the word classic written all over it. And it really is not much of a surprise when it is now considered by many one of the top 5 movies of all time. Perhaps when it comes to cinematic techniques, The Godfather has not been as revolutionary as Citizen Kane, but its influence on motion picture is comparable. Rarely a movie has defined or redefined the genre as much as this one did for gangster movies, but its influence goes well beyond that. The Godfather's influence has been so big for the years that elements of it can be found in virtually every organized crime film nowadays, and every comedy featuring a gangster in the last few years spoofs something in The Godfather. The Italian-American old mobster a la Don Vito Corleone has become one of the most established figures in the public's imagination. As good as the direction and story are, it would be unfair to consider a major role that the actress's performance had in the cinematic triumph that was The Godfather. Praised by many as the best cast ever appear in an American movie, and the cast in The Godfather succeeds in portraying complex, three-dimensional characters without even making a slip. The exceptional portrayals of Don Vito and Michael Corleone, respectively, by Marlon Brando and Al Pacino, the performances by Robert Duvall, James Caan, and Diane Keaton as Tom Hagen, Santino Corleone, and Kay Adams, the ruthless Virgil Silizio, played by Ali Lettery, as well as more than a few roles, are all perfect for the movie, and they all succeed in making us believe these are real people, not just actors. We are not watching a central character and a bunch of incomplete figures that revolve around him. Although Michael Corleone is the character that gets the most screen time, everybody's the center of this world his own way. The movie makes it possible to the viewers to identify with different characters and to observe how their personality and story fits in. And it does it much more effectively than many bloated multiple storyline movies that came out in the last few years after this. And I've decided not to really spoil much about the plot because I believe that this film was perfectly enjoyed without knowing anything in advance if you're going to watch this. And believe it or not, there's still quite a lot of people who have never seen this movie. There are multiple scenes that manage to create an incredible tension, various twists, and although like many other masterpieces, The Godfather can be watched knowing the whole story beforehand and still be a phenomenal experience. And I believe it is always a pleasure to see it for the first time and enjoy its multiple climaxes. Besides, to outline and complicated characters in such an emotionally tense story in a short review like this one would be inadmissible. And like I said once again, the acting's simply amazing. What else could you say? What could be more appealing to people today than watching actors like Al Pacino, Marlon Brando, James Caan, Diane Keaton, Talia Shire, and Robert Duvall? This is like heaven for someone who is a fan of movies. Like, with this movie, Brando was able to bring himself back into the limelight. His performances as the Godfather alone is iconic. His character has been recreated so much in films that has almost if it has already not seen become a cliche. His performance though was not a cliche though. His performance was subtly and breathtaking. Like, it was so genuinely realistic that it was not just probably, but definitely more genuine than Marlon Brando himself. Al Pacino was perfect for this film as well, and with a way to start up your career, his character was all about death, and he displayed it perfectly. He was able to display his own inner battles in his mind as well as the battles he had with his family. Friends and enemies. His character was more of a psychological character study than anything else to me. Like, Robert Duvall to me was the glue of this movie. He added a different perspective to everything than he was, just that he was not Italian yet. telling yet having the respect of the mafia. His character is a man of high authority with the Corleone family who has listened to it insignificant. This was simply just perfect, giving the film great balance throughout. The rest of the characters are just icing on the cake as well. The writing was phenomenal and breathtaking, like I've already mentioned before. Like, it's not even the quotes that makes the writing here so perfect. It's like the symbolism and meaning that went into every scene. There are countless symbols, messages, and lines in here that are so memorable, yet it is as realistic as a movie could get. The directing by Coppola is perfect as well. Not many movies can be 3 hours and yet maintain a good level of interest from the audience like The Godfather. Like, the movie is so well edited and strung together that the only word that could come out of my mind is perfection. The cinematography and music are also great. The score of this movie is one of the most memorable ever. If you were to hear it, you could identify it right away. The cinematography was what actually really drove the movie, and The Godfather seems to have a mystique to it. It gives you the feeling that you are watching something truly remarkable. And then, of course, one of the most iconic scenes ever. The horse's head, the scene of Brando running with his groceries, the coffee shop scene, the beating near the fire hydrant scene. I'll give him an offer he can't refuse. And countless other scenes and quotes from this movie have become a part of our culture. Like, these scenes of lines have just been recycled over and over again in comedies and commercials, etc. Though it is impossible to avoid the greatness of The Godfather is like a disease. Once you see it, you fall in love with it. But so in the end, overall, The Godfather is easily what I can call a timeless classic and the best movie I've ever seen in my life. I can't think of any bad qualities or anything for this film. Only that I like Part 2 a lot better, but that's about it. Anyway, that's pretty much it for my review of The Godfather, and here would be my final recommendation of this movie.
So overall, if you are being introduced to cinema and want to see something that really revolutionized cinema or sparked a big era for mafia films, then I would easily give this movie a watch and buy it for sure. And if you're wondering how I'm going to rank The Godfather, I'm going to give The Godfather an obvious 10 out of 10.
There we go. Now you all know my favorite movie of all time, but it's not over yet. That's the first half of my favorite movie of all time. Because the next review is going to be the second half of my favorite movie of all time, and that's the sequel, The Godfather Part 2. So yeah, because I'm reviewing the whole entire trilogy, not just the first film. But yeah, so yeah, that's going to be the review franchise this week. And until then, guys, that will be it for this review. Thank you all for watching, and if you like this and want to see more, then don't forget to like, subscribe to Movie Lover 120.